Thanks again for joining us, Dustin. I'm super excited for our conversation today.
Me too. Excited to be here. I'm excited to really pour as much value into, our nurses. So like that's my intention. I'm pumped. Been watching through your content. Love your energy. Everything is aligned. So the fact that we get to be here and get to do this on a Monday, I'm pumped for it.
Same, same. So, yes, I'm just going to jump in. How did you get into helping nurses? Like, what are you a nurse yourself, or what inspired you?
Yeah, so I'm actually not a nurse myself, but my mom actually worked in healthcare. So I witnessed firsthand growing up what it's like to have a mom pour into everybody else. I remember watching my mom come home after 12-hour shifts and raising three boys. I'm the oldest of three boys. And almost holding a grudge of why can't my mom make it to my basketball games? Why did she forget to pick me up from school? Because she was just busy just sleeping and napping, on her off days. And so that gave me this drive of, you know what? Every client that I've helped up until this point reminds me of exactly like my mom. And so that's why I'm on this mission. Even though I'm not a nurse, it's just something that is truly something that is in my heart to really help. So that's how it
That's
started.
incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. What kind of nurse was your mom? Or
My
is your
mom,
mom?
yeah, she wasn't a nurse. She was like she worked with hospices, so she like was in 4 or 5 hospices. I remember even interning at one of them, and I was like, "Holy crap, this is crazy." And I even remember being in these places, and not just nurses, but healthcare professionals are super unhealthy. And I didn't understand why. I was like, wait, we're listening to them. And even my mom, right? And so, um, yeah, that was like eye opening for me at a really young age.
Was she unhealthy to you? Your mom?
She wasn't unhealthy. I mean, I come from an immigrant background, and so there was nothing about eating protein. There was nothing about prioritizing your health, and it was honestly not just the physical, but the mindset,
Mm.
of like pouring into everybody else and putting yourself last. I think that was like the big thing, and then of course you have all the health things, not knowing how to eat, what to eat, being even in hospitals, right? I mean, the petition that kind of the work that you're doing around just having real food available isn't even in the conversation. So I think it's more of just nurses and healthcare professionals knowing what to do, but it's this entire system that's set up for failure. And so um, that's really what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, me too. It took me a while. I was like your mom, like I was just working, grinding, sleeping, preparing for my next shift. I wasn't living. I was very controlled by the system. So I'm so grateful for people like you who are taking on helping us because it's a huge problem and we're just unaware of what's going on because we're so tired. We're so wrapped up in the system and so dedicated to helping our patients and wanting to do the best, but it really takes from us. So I
It's tough,
appreciate
but
it.
yeah, absolutely. And thank you for acknowledging that. And for you, Ali, just so many nurses who get into this field in the first place is because we have this calling to impact and serve. And so when you're in the situation, it's hard to see, right? Like,
Yeah.
and so you're getting caught up because everyone around you is kind of in the same drift, as I call it. And so I don't blame nurses. When I talk to nurses and they're like, Dustin, I've been burned out. I lost my routine since COVID. Like I feel like I need more discipline. I need to hard work. I'm like, the fact that you're already nurse in the first place, you're already a hard worker. You're already disciplined. That's why you're in the position. So it's not that it's not you. It's the whole system. It's this that never gets talked about, right? That gets brushed under the rug. And so it's dope to have people like yourself who are really standing up and shifting this and bringing light to it. I think this is doesn't get talked about enough, and it the work that you're doing is truly impactful. I believe it's God's work, and so I really want to let you know that as well, Ali.
Thank you. Yeah. It's scary to talk about in this world. Uh, Unless something really happens to you or it affects your life the way it affected my life, you're kind of just stuck. And it's a really scary feeling, and you do start doubting yourself, and losing your health. And it's just so serious that the awareness is, it just came to me that I need to talk about it. There was just a lot of, and I don't mean to like put these down, but there's a lot of comedic accounts to help nurses, laugh through this horrible, reality. And I appreciate those. But there comes a time where we just have to be serious. We have to be real about what's going on. And it can't just be this comedy anymore to me. Once it affected my life so much, I couldn't laugh about it anymore. And I'm like all about comedy and laughter. Like my entire childhood, I was, the class clown and trying to make people laugh, and
Yeah.
even as a nurse. But comes a point where you have to be real and you have to be honest.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you bring that up. Like I see that too. And I think the humor is great, but it's a band-aid, and when we look at this from a health standpoint, this is a big freaking issue because I have family members who were who been in the hospital at these situations. And when I'm in the hospital, I'm like, I would love a fit nurse who's like mentally dialed in physically. I mean, it is really not a joke anymore. And I think there should be a lot more urgency. And I appreciate you bringing that. I mean, the fact that you went through what you went through in June of 2023, like that was a huge wake up call. I mean, I would love to hear what was that pivotal moment for you then to almost snap you out of like, hold up, I'm looking at this in the entire wrong way. Like, what was that moment for you like?
It was small little axes on a tree at once. So
Mm,
when I had my first seizure in June of 2023, I was on a travel contract and I was on a night shift. And the second I had the seizure, I was admitted, I was intubated overnight, I was flown to a new hospital, and I woke up like 6 days later to no answers. Very horrible care at this prestigious hospital that is supposedly one of the best in the country. And it was a huge wake up call. They completely infiltrated my arm with medications and basically told me that that's not what happened and what I was seeing wasn't real. And coming from a nurse background, it was a huge letdown. And that was my first acts of, what's going on. The system doesn't seem to know what it's doing, even at this hospital where they're teaching other doctors how to be doctors. And once they started putting me on medications, I started spiraling even more. I was on like 9 meds a day, some of them 3 times a day. And that was another axe at the system. Like nobody was giving me answers. It was just medications. And then eventually you need to have surgery, is what they were telling me. And the only way you're going to live a normal life is if you get a section of your brain removed. And it was really just very dark. And it put me in a dark place of, I'm just going to die, is basically what they made me feel. And when I eventually got my seizures under control, I went back to work. I took up another travel contract, and that's where I just got shattered. And that's when I got assaulted by a patient in triage. And the hospital fired me for having a seizure after that incident. And it my reality was shattered completely. I was like, nobody is on our side. They don't want their patients well. They don't want their nurses well. It broke every illusion I had of the medical system. And that's when I just started digging deep.
and it's crazy that what you've gone through, so many other nurses are going
Silently.
silently too. And I get to work with nurses, and I wish they were able to speak up. And so the fact that you're leading this charge, I think is ultimately very powerful. And I guess that bridges into what can we do, right? What can we do in our control to kind of like really fight this and also protect ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think it's crazy
It's
that this.
a subject that needs to bring awareness to, like, bad. And I think the reason my platform blew up is because the people knew, and uh, a lot of providers that spoke up in the past didn't weren't given the opportunity to because they were silenced and shut down. And now, for some reason, I don't know if it's our administration or deals with social media, but now we have a chance to talk. And when I saw that other people were talking, I said, like, now, like, let the floodgates open, because if we don't have this opportunity again, we are fucked, is basically my perspective, you know? So I'm just taking advantage of the opportunity that we can tell the truth and not be silenced and not be, you know, take your license away yet.
Absolutely. And I see this even more important with the new nurses are entering the field, who are in nursing school and then it's their first year in bedside and they're not even prepped for what's to come. Like, what about them, right? What about the next generation of nurses who are entering the field? I mean, what's the percentage of them leaving bedside or leaving nursing after 1 year, after 2 years, after 3 years? And then it's not even talked about the families of nurses who are being affected by it because of what nurses are going through. We think about personal relationships, that doesn't get talked about. What about their kids as well, right? And their families that they're showing up. And I always tell my nurses, you guys are showing up to war every shift. Like, let's not downplay it, right? Like, let's not downplay it anymore. And so it starts here. It really starts here. It really starts with health. And I love that that's what you've been pushing for as well is, hey, how do we just take care of ourselves first? Because we really can't impact the people around us, right? Our families, patients, our communities, if we're not taking care of ourselves. So I'm so big on like, let's get you super healthy first. Let's make you a fit nurse. Like, how do we turn nurses fit again? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
honestly.
that's it. We take care of our soldiers going to war and we make sure that they're fed, that they have a bunch of resources. I mean, look at all the tax dollars that are going towards that. What about nurses? They're in the front lines every single day, every single shift.
Yeah, it's a huge problem. And so many people create a culture of unhealthy eating, unhealthy drinking. It's very common for nurses to have addictions. And yeah, it's not talked about enough. And it's definitely not talked about enough to new grads and giving them an example of how it should be. In nursing school, you're already giving candy for, just in class, and everyone's drinking energy drinks, and nobody's exercising. Nobody wants health. Nobody understands health when nurses used to be prevention. They used to go into your homes in like the late 1800s. They would teach you how to drink, good water, how to clean your water, how to eat good food, how to keep up good hygiene. And somehow in the shift of the medical industry came in and just wiped all that out and turned us into, you know, mules of the system, and really taken advantage of and really just abused and used. And like you said, it is a war zone going in every day. And I won't compare it to actual war because I don't know what that's like, but it is a war zone. And the second you walk in, your nervous system goes straight into fight or flight. You're under fluorescent lights. There's a typical ER shift looks like this. You walk in the doors, instantly fluorescent lights. Someone's probably screaming. There's probably a nasty smell in the air from someone. There's just every sense is stimulated the second you walk in. So how could you not be in fight or flight? And how do you combat that now that there's no fresh air in hospitals? There's no what we used to do. They took that all away from us.
Yeah. They even took away time to drink water, to use the restroom
Mm-hmm.
for that matter, let alone get natural sunlight. I mean, what we have like a couple studies already showing that nurses don't get enough sunlight already, and yeah, it's absolutely insane. And I guess for you, Ali, what kind of advice do you tell a nurse? Let's say a nurse is like, all right, Ali, I get it. Like I need to fix something. What can I do that's in my control? I can't switch careers now, right? This is my livelihood. Where do you start with that?
I start with awareness, awareness of everything, awareness of yourself, awareness of boundaries, having boundaries in the system and being able to say no to things and standing up for yourself. I start with just the basics. Make sure as a nurse you're going outside and seeing the sun. Night shift isn't an excuse. When you get home at 7 a.m., the sun is up. Even if it's before bed, you're still giving yourself that circadian allowance of vitamins. And that's a huge thing that nurses, even the general public, is not getting is vitamin D. You can't get the real hormone through a pill. You just can't. You can't supplement the right amount through a pill. We need, as humans, we need sunlight, and that's huge. And we need food, real food. We need that. And that's something nurses really lack on, is understanding how to properly fuel with food, with energy. Calories are energy. You need to properly energize your body, not through insulin spikes with all the candy and, you're just going up and down every hour. You're like, oh, I'm tired. I'm going to eat a piece of candy. Okay, I'm good for 10 minutes and then you're down. So just figuring out how to assist yourself through a long shift, through the long hours, the continuous work, and just being able to keep up with that is huge.
Absolutely. Yeah, and you know, I'm thinking about one of my clients. She's a nurse mom. She was in ER, now she's an NP. And I remember when she first came to me, she wanted to obviously regain her energy, build muscle, right, be fit. And she was doing everything that was actually driving up her cortisol even more and lowering her metabolism. Like, it's crazy that a lot of nurses are type A. When they want to, get fit, they'll do things like hit, or they'll like drive their cortisol up even more, and and then they'll undereat as well. And already, when you're undernourished, that's the worst thing you can do, is undereat and cut your calories even more. And so I find that a lot of nurses, just like her, came to me in this situation where they're eating 800, 900 calories because they're, I mean, already with 12-hour night shifts or just 12-hour shifts in general, you just don't have time to eat. And so in their heads, they're like, let me just fast, right? Because let me just lose weight and not have to eat anyways. But they're not realizing that they're killing their energy more and more every day. And when you throw in things like, little snacks here, candy here, a latte, caffeine, it's digging them into a hole. And then they wake up 3 years later and they're going like, oh my God, why am I just so burned out? I could barely wake up for work. And now they're stuck in this survival mode. And I feel like that, along with the system that prides on that, it's a recipe for disaster. And so I love the fact that you're starting with the basics, which is, let's build awareness and let's just work on getting some sunlight, hydration, and getting some real food into your system before we even think about working out,
Anything else?
yeah, and
Yeah.
anything else. And then you have like, man, I'm going off on a tangent, but then you have the push with the GLP-1s on top of that. Ooh, now we talk about bone density, we talk about even drop in muscle mass. It's like, where are we
Yeah.
going? Where are we going? It
Yeah.
really it really frustrates me. I get really passionate about this. But yeah, I, I, I
Yeah.
s- I see it.
Absolutely. And, the number one thing I took away from back in the day, I went to EMT school, and the number one thing I took away from that class, surprisingly, was, this is the base of the pyramid. When you go wherever you want in life, whether you want to be like a paramedic, a nurse, a doctor, whatever, this is the base of the pyramid. And most people that go on to get these degrees and acquire more knowledge, forget these basics. And they start looking at all these crazy other options that, medications and surgery and all these things that are at the maybe top of the pyramid, but we forgot
Mm,
just the basics: sleep, sunlight, food, water, walk, like just basic human needs that our ancestors did. That point in EMT school, I was like, wow, that's true. Always go back to your
yeah,
basics
yeah,
and you'll probably be healthy.
100%. But it's non-sexy, right? And it's not sellable. So the industry, like, industry doesn't want to sell it, let alone the fitness industry doesn't want to sell it because it's free. When we talk about things like getting sunlight, hydration, eating whole foods, there's really no money to be made
Yeah.
there. And so it's like in their best interest to not really push that, right? And that's where there's opportunities for, you know, individuals like yourself to come in there and really shift that narrative. When we really
Yeah.
look at it, it's it's the basics and it's simple. But it is hard to execute. It's hard to execute when you're a nurse and you have a lot of obligations, life, family. Um, but there is a way. There's absolutely a solution to it, and it starts with taking care of yourself. So.
Yeah. What's a common thing that nurses come to you and say, what's like, or the most common, maybe?
The most common thing is that nurses think they're overweight, but the truth is that they're under muscled. They've been underfed and they've been under muscled for so long, which is why their energy is tanked. That's why they're relying on caffeine. And honestly, that's where they're stuck. And when we do body composition scans, so every nurse that comes in, I have them all do a DEXA scan. We all look at their blood markers. We look at their A1C, they look at their cholesterol, we look at their hormones, and we also look at their body composition. Their body fat percentage is actually what's high. And so the only thing nurses are looking for when they come to me, they're like, Dustin, I want to lose 20 pounds. I just want to see the scale drop to 20 pounds. So my doctor told me I should probably jump on Ozempic or tirzepatide, not realizing that, hold up, we don't need to lose any more weight right now. We also don't need to do any more cardio. We also don't need to work out. We need to get your metabolism up, and we need to get your muscle mass up. Because without that, you're not going to have the longevity. You're not going to be able to keep off the weight. You're not going to have the energy and the strength and the ability to recover from being a nurse and being able to show up fully. And so what we start there first is that I reverse diet them. And it sounds scary for a lot of nurses because you're like, Dustin, you're telling me to eat more and train less. I'm trying to lose weight. What's going on? And so I show them that, well, this is where your muscle mass is at. This is where it should be for your age. This is where your bone density is at. Let's look at your visceral fat. Let's get you healthy first. And what happens is when we start nourishing, when I start nourishing my clients, they start eating, upwards of 2,000 calories. They're just walking more. They're getting out. They're getting their daily sunlight. Then their body naturally starts to change. They start to get more energy. Once they have more energy, then they can actually do things like working out, be more productive. And that's not having to rely on a drug or a GLP-1. Like let's get you eating some protein and get you starting to strength train. And that's not 5 times a week, right? That's 2 times a week, 3 times a week, very low impact strategic strength training. And little do you know, in 4 months, 6 months, they're a lot healthier. Their muscle mass is up and they're able to maintain that. And I think sustainability is the number one thing nurses should be focusing on when it comes to their health.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you touched on that because obviously throughout my journey, I've kind of tried to figure everything out on my own. And that's a huge thing that I've come across is not just nurses, everyone in America has a muscle, like we need muscle here because when you look at the stats of people who get discharged from the hospital, good, healthy, ready to go, it's mostly people with muscle. And the people that are unfortunately dying and not making it out of the hospital or barely making it out of the hospital and dying at home are usually people who are overweight or don't have muscle mass. And that's 70 plus percent of our population. And it's really concerning. And it, the way I learned as a kid was, high intensity run, like do these burpees and all these CrossFit. And I think it's stressing our bodies out more and holding on to fat more than actually focusing on muscle gain.
Absolutely. And I always tell this to my nurses, building muscle is like investing. The more muscle you build in your early years, that's going to protect you long term from not only like diseases, okay, but youthful. Like that's youth right there because let's say you get sick. The person who has more muscle is going to be able to withstand and have this cushion of protection than someone who's under muscled. And so, exactly like what you said, right? Most the fitness industry has pushed more cardio, more calorie burn. You look at like hit classes, the F45s, the Orange Theories, they're focusing on just burning a lot of calories, but what they don't talk about is the detriments when it comes to your cortisol. And if you're already high stressed and you're adding more working out, like intensity cardio or any type of working out, it's another stress signal, right? And your body just takes it on. I'm not sleeping enough. I'm showing up. I'm undernourished. And then Allie has to go to another workout class and burn 800 calories. Yeah, we're not burning our body fat. We're going to hold on to everything that we can to protect ourselves. Our bodies are just adaptation machines, right? And so once we can understand that mechanism and we go, okay, wow, you know what? Let's work with our body instead of against it. That's when everything starts changing.
Yeah, and it's really incredible when it does. I've seen like the changes myself because I went from very high intensity workouts, and I love working out. I just
Hmm.
thought that was the right thing to do,
Yeah.
to strength training, Pilates, walking, very low impact, and it's not stressful for me. It's incorporated into a routine. And I think that's another thing that nurses would benefit from is just establishing something daily that is coming. Like every Monday is Pilates, just so it's not today, ugh, am I going to go to the gym? Or no, you just have a routine that helps you, whether it's before work, after work, on your days off, whatever works for them. But I think routine is huge for nurses and keeping them consistent because I
Yeah.
didn't have one.
It's structure, right? It's funny because I work with a lot of nurses. I was just thinking of one of my more recent clients, who's a nurse, travel nurse, has is traveling all the time. And one thing that we did was just lock in a structure and routine for her, or something that she can just always rely on that are non-negotiables. And that can be something as making sure that you're front loading, she's front loading her protein every single morning, whether it's before a shift or it's off a shift, that she's front loading at least 40 to 50 grams of protein in the morning. She's having her hydration with a little bit of electrolytes. That sets up the tone for the rest of the day, right? And so just that alone, or making sure that you're getting in a post-meal walk just to balance out your insulin sensitivity, just these little things, they stack up over time. And then once you start feeling good, once you start getting into that routine, then you can habit stack, right? And so, yeah, the first place is just having structure. And so many nurses can use a lot more support. And another mindset thing is that nurses want to do it all by themselves. It's very tough. I don't know how you felt, but it's like, I'm a nurse. Everyone's asking me for help. I don't need a support system. But if a patient ever came in and go like, I got this on my own, you guys would all be like, hold up, let me help you, right? And so that is the first place that I have to break with a lot of nurses. Like, it's okay to ask for support because the best athletes in the world, I mean, the World Cup right now, right? The best athletes in the world have a team of trainers, coaches, nutritionists. Why wouldn't you think you as a nurse, you deserve a support team behind you too with your health and everything that you got going on? Because that's how you show up for everybody else. And so I think it's not just, it's a powerful thing. It's a strategic thing to get that support. And that's hard. And I understand that because I'm not a nurse, but I have that same mentality. And it took me a long time to go like, you know what? getting support and having a team behind me, whether that's a life coach, an accountability coach, right, a business coach, that is a very powerful thing in order if we want to impact and serve more people. And so that was another thing that I've learned working with nurses the past couple of years.
Yeah, we're very stubborn. I still am.
It's in your DNA
It
almost.
is. It's imprinted for forever. But
Yeah.
I have accepted help. I have learned to accept help because that will take you down too if you don't learn how to ask for help and accept it
Mm,
fully.
yeah.
It's
What else
hard.
have you, yeah, what else have you noticed with the mentality of a nurse? Like, for example, this is one of them.
Hmm. Let's see. There's so many. Stubborn, type A, uh, very need structure, or ER nurses are not. Very messy, very, um, it's mostly the unhealthy culture and being mentally and physically drained every day, I think, is what I notice every day. And just something that is a little more depressing. I just feel like nobody's happy.
Mm,
Nobody's happy in their job. Everyone just feels stuck, and it's just mentally and physically draining, you know?
yeah. Yeah, it's tough when everyone around you feels that and it's heavy, you know. How did you break away from that? Or were you able to? Once you went through your situation, you're like, hold up. Because it is something that you can control, right? It's your attitude, and so you have a different attitude. Now I'm curious, what was that like?
It didn't come to me. I wasn't mentally and physically able to, or I wasn't able to see that aspect until I started getting healthy and until I was eating the proper foods and feeling what real energy feels like, not
Mm.
what sipping an energy drink feels like. Because when I sip an energy drink, I feel instantly my heart rate increase, I'm a little sweaty, and I don't really have energy. I just feel kind of bleh. And then I crash. Whereas with food and how I've learned to, like you said, I front load my protein. I
Hmm.
always get my protein in the morning. And initially I was like, ugh, this is like, I didn't usually eat. I would just drink like coffee and have a scone or something, like super easy. That's another thing nurses do. They just want easy because everything else is just too hard to think about because they're so tired. But what I realized was when I actually nourished my body, I never felt tired. I can go all day now. I'm like everywhere. I've never done so much in my life. I've never
Mm,
connected with so many people. I've never felt this way. And it's a genuine difference when you know how to fuel your body.
absolutely. And a lot of nurses, right, don't even realize they have that capacity. And they're all in this place where a lot of nurses come to me and they've already almost accepted the fact that they're not going to have energy, that they're going to feel like this, that things are going to get worse. And it's hard, right? Because they first have to break away from the mindset of, wait, my body is capable for more. I have a lot more energy. I can have a lot more energy. It's just I haven't been able to figure out how to nourish my body properly or move in a way or manage stress so that way I can do more. And so I think that is so important that they have to first realize that it can be fixed and it is possible because I've helped over 200 nurses the past couple of years do exactly that. And it's pretty cool to see them eat more food, eat more calories, lose more weight, have more energy. Some of the best things that I've heard from working with nurses who are working night shifts, whether they're NPs, ICU, and also in the ER, I work with male nurses as well. They're telling me that they get home from work and that their laundry is getting folded now, right? Like those little things on the off days of taking their kids out to the park on the bike, and they're like, I'm present now. Those little things, oh man, makes this all worthwhile. And, we take for granted, not just nurses, but we take for granted all of these little things. And the fact that you're able to lead by example, now that you have more energy, you're like, I can't believe I'm able to do all of this and more. Imagine if every nurse in the world had more capacity.
Oh my gosh. I imagine it every day. I want nurses to get back to the way we were used before. When I say used, I mean we were here for our communities. We weren't being drained by the system. We were our own system. We were paid, a different portion. We weren't lumped into an insurance bill that doesn't even say nursing. It was actual community health service, and it really fuels my fire. I really want to get nurses healthy to the point where, they can show up and they can not only show up for their patients, they can show up for their family, and it doesn't feel like a chore and they're not tired all the time.
Absolutely. And it's a duty and it's a responsibility, right? For nurses to really first take care of themselves first. Like it's possible. What do you feel like is keeping a lot of nurses stuck? Because your platform, a lot of nurses following your platform, they understand. They know that, where the healthcare system is at. If they've listened to, your podcast episodes and your content, they know something needs to change. Where do you feel like they're stuck, Allie, right now? For the ones who are aware.
Um, Part of it is people with families who just don't have time to even think about it, and two, nurses, I think, with families are struggling financially. So they don't have the money or they don't have the resources because they don't have the time to take the time to realize, if I have a structured grocery list, I can maybe afford this for my family.
Yeah.
And they don't have, those just simple resources on how to feed your family. But also our prices in America are just absolutely disgusting right now for groceries. Like I it's just a household of two and I spend upwards of, almost probably $1,000 a month on groceries. But I choose that for my health. That's my prevention. I don't spend my money on the healthcare system anymore, and that's how I invest in myself is knowing I'm getting nutrient dense food, or at least hoping I'm getting nutrient dense food.
Yeah, even if things are organic here, as we know, it's like compared to other countries, it's bad.
It is. Other countries don't need to put an organic label on because it's not being sprayed. It just
Right.
is organic and it is real, and they're regionally sourcing animals, and everyone has farms, and like our farms are being bought up and not used as farms, and then we're getting all this fake meat being fed to us. It's the food system is concerning, and I just hope we're on a new track.
And to go back to your point of, the financial burden you know, that is with this, that is a big component. What I have seen is that it's an investment, right? And so many nurses that I've talked to, when we look at where they're spending their money to, I think that's another conversation of like, like that financial literacy. But where you put your money to is either going to serve you or pull you back, right? I mean, we look at like DoorDash, like, drive-throughs and whatnot. They might be healthier than going to get your organic foods and like the fact that you spend $1,000 a month. But the fact is that you're investing for your future, not just for your health, but think about all the medical bills in the future, right? Like we don't talk about how nurses, once they get past 50, I mean, doctor visits. I mean, I've seen it with my mom firsthand because she wasn't able to take care of her health. She didn't have the resources, she didn't have the experience, she didn't have the knowledge. The amount she's spending on hospital bills, medications, going to see specialists, those come back over time if you don't do something about it now. And so everything that you spend on the foods you eat is an investment for the future. And honestly, that bill at the end of the 20 years down the road, that's a way bigger cost than what it costs to really prioritize your health right now. Yeah.
I agree. And I had to go through that with
Yeah.
my medical problems. I was way deep in debt, from insurance companies denying stuff to other like medical things to pay for. The prescriptions, etc. Like it adds up and it is stressful. And to not live a stressful life and to, prevent these things from happening is beautiful. It is like true freedom. And I hope everyone can achieve it.
Absolutely. And it really starts with, having that awareness and kind of prioritizing your health first because you think about it, right? If you're a nurse and you're working and you're burned out, right? Not only are you one risking your ability to work, right? But two, all the medical bills that are coming, and now you're actually more caged than someone who is able to prioritize their health early on and have the freedom to not only continue to work, continue to rise up in their career as a nurse, but maybe even potentially pivot and kind of figure that out. But it's hard to do that when you're really just physically, mentally, emotionally burned out, which is that's why it's so tough to be in this, to be in this role. So yeah.
Yeah. And my opinion is I think a lot of nurses could be very entrepreneurial and very not system driven, but like the way nursing system pushes them into hospitals and then you kind of just get stuck in your way and they don't want change. That's another thing that I see a lot of.
I mean, the system doesn't want nurses to think like that. It's almost like they want them to be tired and burned out enough to not think about what else is out there. That's how I
Yeah,
see it.
me too. Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I just think it starts in nursing school. But so what other things or what other subjects about the medical system do you maybe not agree with?
I don't agree that the fact that they're not prioritizing what's the word, preventative wellness, and it's all just kind of setting people up to get sick and then capitalizing on that, I think is freaking insane. I think that's the whole point right there. They're
Yeah.
literally capitalizing on people to get sick. It's incentivized for us to be sick. It's easier to control us. It's easier to make money off of us. It's just, I mean, it's a cash machine if you really break it down. I mean, who's swooping up all the hospitals? I think you kind of mentioned this, right? There's like people coming in like buying hospitals. Why? I mean, it's a freaking business opportunity for them. And I get it. And it's tough because it's hurting people. It's at the expense of not only nurses, but everyone that goes into the healthcare system. That's me and you.
Yeah, and it's our future generations, our kids, yeah. And what do you think we could do collectively as, I would say, figures for people you have seen someone who you love go through this, and I myself has gone through this. Like, what can we do to continue to bring awareness and get more people on board with, change?
I think the best way to do that is continue to have these conversations. I think what you're doing, the work that you're doing um, is amazing. The petition you started, the podcast that you're starting, you just speaking on it, us having these conversations. And if one more nurse can hear this conversation, that's enough to create a ripple effect. I mean, I've seen it so many times. Every time I get a nurse who's healthy, she's taking care of herself. Not only is she impacting her kids, but now other nurses in her unit are going like, you know what? Maybe the way I've been eating needs to be changed. Okay, cool. So what are we doing there? Right? And it's leading by example. It's at Aly, like the fact that you're leading by example, you're able to impact, right? But if you're tired, you're burned out, you're not able to show up on a podcast and you're not able to do the work that you're doing, how are we supposed to spread that? So I think it really starts with that. I also think that I would love for people like us to go to nursing schools to speak on this at an early place. Let's start there. Let's talk to the young nurses and get them to be healthy and get them to be fit and to really understand what it's like to jump into this industry. Um, I think that would be a great start. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Getting people before they get into the system fully. And I agree. That's actually really, I never thought of that. Uh, a great opportunity
yeah.
to get
Because
them.
yeah, I talked to so many nursing students and they're already burned out in nursing school. And I'm like, wait, if they're burned out in nursing school, what about when they jump into nursing? I'm
Yeah,
like, hold up, let's start there. Let's start when they're in nursing school. Let's get them fit and healthy and get ready so that when they jump into the field, they're ready to go, right?
yeah, yeah. Because I was burned out in nursing school. I was burned out as a tech. I was a pre-burned out nurse because
Yeah,
it just, yeah, something about the way the system is built to function gets you right in the beginning.
yeah,
Constant stress,
yeah.
overload.
And I'm almost like, man, did they even set up that in nursing school to like be it so intense so early on? And it's like, and it creates that like, what's the all or nothing perfectionist mindset that every nurse that comes in, because I do a lot of identity and mindset work. That's actually one of the first key start places we start with. And I'm always thinking, all right, where did that come from? Damn, probably nursing school. I was trying to ace and be very competitive and to make sure that you're hitting everything perfectly under high stress, low sleep. Like it's almost like they're creating this environment before you even become a nurse. Like,
Absolutely. They are. They want to make sure you will compete, you will be
mm,
like obedient, you will, yeah. And oh my God, I failed my fifth semester of nursing school, the med surg class, because long story short, this school basically purposely like failed three-fourths of the class every semester. So not a lot of people moved on. And I bawled my eyes out. I thought it was the end of the world.
yeah,
How dare I fail this class? Like, and it was so much stress, so much unnecessary stress, lack of sleep, just awful.
honestly, for me to look at it and, being a coach who's looking from this from an outside standpoint, it's crazy. I'm just gonna say it, but it's like almost manipulative to kind of set nurses up in this system to start operating like that, and they have a quota to fail students. So that way they have to go through this traumatic, situation to try to kind of live up to the standard is like insane to me.
It's disgusting.
It honestly is disgusting. It may like wow.
Yeah,
Wow. It's blasphemy.
yeah, it is. Yeah, nursing school, I don't recommend. I mean, I wish it could be completely reconstructed because nursing, it needs education in a classroom to a certain extent, but it can be learned a lot on the job. As an ER tech, like just observing the nurses, I learned a lot, and a lot of it can be learned through practice, hands on, seeing, being. A lot of the education that you're given is cool, anatomy. I learned about the body, all this stuff, but to actually be a good nurse, you don't need all this crammed education. And they still cram it in your mind once you're hired at the hospital. You have all these modules you have to do, and 47 a week, and they keep piling up. And if you don't do them at work, you have to do them at home. So it's just this constant, like, I'd say indoctrination of education.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I know we're kind of going down the rabbit hole of almost It's like, but I do want to say that nurses are the most respectable people that I've ever met. We have some really great nurses. I remember even when my grandpa was in the hospital, my mom was in the hospital. I mean, I had an amazing nurse who went above and beyond to the T, gave me a call, and I'm like, I'm so indebted that I get to work with nurses and people like my mom who show up every day, who just have this drive and this purpose to help the people who need it the most. And it's tough that this is the reality. Um, but man, without nurses, we wouldn't be where we would be at. And so, I think I definitely want to call that out. And, shout out to all the nurses, shout out to all the healthcare professionals who really fight, who do the work day in and day out. Like, you guys deserve, so much love. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is hard to be a nurse and hard to. I like how you help nurses with identity because my identity was shattered when I was fired, and it was hard to find it again because you have such a grasp on that feeling of wanting to help people and the feeling of the system pushing against you and you not getting to help people. And it's shattering. It's really difficult as nurses. I think a lot of people could agree with me that identity is so precious to us. Like, we all go into this field to help people, and it is horrifying that that's not our reality, that we don't get to fully do that. So there are nurses and a lot of nurses that go above and beyond because we want to feel that still. We want to feel that we're helping people. We want people to know that we want to help people, but the system gets in our way.
Yeah. And it's a double-edged sword, when I talk to the nurses that I work with, and I kind of help them reframe where it's like, okay, so what do you really, what is your goal and purpose? So like, I just really want to show up and, impact my patients. I want to help my family, right? I want to lead by example. And I'm like, how can we do that if you're not taking care of the most important patient, which is you? Because I'd hate for you in 5, 10 years to be in the patient bed, the very people that you show up to serve. And it's not a selfish thing to pour back into you, to have boundaries, to take a step back to pour into you. It's actually the most selfless thing you can do because your patients, your family, your community, do they deserve you burned out or do they deserve you at 100% when you're energized, you're present, you're ready to go? Which one do they deserve, right? Probably the fit and energized one. So that is a selfless thing to do. That is how you're going to actually impact more is by taking care of and pouring into your cup, right? That term, you can't pour from an empty cup. Man, we got to have
Never
that.
more true.
We have to have that plastered somewhere, right?
Honestly, in every hospital,
Every hospital,
everywhere.
first thing that nurses should see is you can't pour from an empty cup. And if nurses all poured into themselves, they took a step back, man,
Yeah.
game
It,
changer.
yeah. You know, it's like if hospitals can't show up for nurses or the system can't show up to show appreciation for nurses, it'd be cool to find a way to really show up and, put those in break rooms or something. Like, just
Yeah.
to, there's no encouragement out there, There is, but it's very low noise. Like, not a lot of nurses feel appreciated. It's
It's not.
not,
And nurses don't need another potluck party. They don't need another appreciation week with a bunch of bullshit. Like it's all so fake to me to see that. What nurses need to feel is they need to be empowered to take ownership, to take accountability over their own life. They only get one shot at this. Like that's where I'm at when I get to talk to one of like my nurses. I'm like, we only get one shot. And honestly, this is your life. You got to grab it by the horns. We got to go. We can't wait for the system. It. What if the system takes another 50 years? Then
yeah.
what? Are we gonna sit back or are we gonna like? we're gonna do what we can. And that's kind of like my whole mentality of like getting them to shift that identity of going like, hey, this is how the system is. We're already kind of fucked. We might as well kind of do what we can now and make the most of it to achieve that freedom and to be able to kind of live life on your own terms because you've been deserving it. So yeah.
I love that. And where can my audience find you if they want to join your coaching?
Yeah. So I post a lot of my content on Instagram. You can find me at Dustin Chau. I have a YouTube channel as well where I post a ton of just free content around if you're on night shifts, how you should eat, how you should prioritize your health, lifestyle habits, everything's on there. I have a podcast as well. It's called Behind the Vision Podcast. I interview a lot of my clients who are nurses so that way you can kind of get value and take away some of the things that we've done. And shoot me a DM. Let me know you coming from Aly's page, and I'm happy to have a conversation and help you out in any way I can. So yeah.
Thank you, Dustin. And is there anything you want to leave my audience with before we
Yeah,
sign off?
absolutely. If you guys haven't already, go sign Ally's petition. If you resonate with everything that we talked about today, everything that she's doing, that's the first step. And I just highly empower and encourage you, and I give you permission to number one, lean in to get the help and support. And that it doesn't have to be working with me, it doesn't have to be working with but lean into that support around you. It's so powerful. Show it for your colleagues, show it for the nurse that you know can just use a call, like pick someone up. Just a words of encouragement, a pouring into your cup first can go such a long way. And that's what I really want to share as my message. And yeah, Aly, like, you know, I acknowledge the work that you're doing. I truly feel what you're doing is you're fighting from the top down. And I'm kind of fighting from the inside out, you know, and we need
Yeah.
both. So let's continue to do this. This is just scratching the surface. Um, and this is what we're here to do. So let's get it.
Yes, I love it. Thank you so much for joining us. This has been a very inspiring and positive podcast because, like you guys know, this can get very deep and dark and down some rabbit holes, but there is a lot of positive impact happening out here, and we are fighting for just a better future and for better health for all of us. And it just starts with each of us. Little choices, basic changes, and just truly wanting to take care of yourself so that we can show up for our communities and everyone around us. So thank you, Dustin. Thank you for sharing this positive impact.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Aly.
Absolutely. And if you guys join this episode, please share it with a friend, send it to anyone who you think would benefit from it.